Hey everyone, Zion over here from Nintendo Life. The Legend of Zelda: Tears of the Kingdom is finally here. It feels really weird to say out loud that we've actually gotten to play the game, and lots of people are playing it and enjoying it. But we also know that a lot of people out there are kind of unsure if is the game really as good as all of the reviewers and everybody on the internet is saying. Is it as good as Breath of the Wild? Could it possibly be better? I don't know exactly, but we are here to at least try to answer that question for you. And when I say we, I'm joined by the fantastic Mr. Felix.
I just landed in a giant puddle of water. I'm ready.
Nice.
Hey.
I can't believe you're a diving pro already. Goodness. So Felix and I, we didn't review Tears of the Kingdom. Felix did work on the video review adaptation of Alana's review. But we both got the game on Friday or Thursday, technically, and we've been playing it a ton, haven't we?
Oh yeah, my schedule is basically wake up, play Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, go to bed, repeat. It's like time just flies by when I'm playing. A whole day just gone, and I've just played Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, and I'm so glad I just took the weekend just to play the game. I am having an amazing time. It's absolutely breathtaking. So much to do, so many new ideas. And it just feels so different than Breath of the Wild, doesn't it?
Well, it's really nice, too, because considering, like, you, Felix, you played Breath of the Wild years ago, but then recently you just, like, went back through, right, and did a no fast travel run, and you finished the game, and, like, you did all the shrines, like...
Oh, yeah. It was, my third run took 115 hours, so it's, I played it a lot. I played it for, like, 3 months, and I was a bit concerned that it would take some of my enjoyment of Tears of the Kingdom away, but... It just, like, Hyrule feels so different. It's almost unrecognizable in some of the sections. I really like how they, like, some sections wasn't used as much like Hyrule Fields in Breath of the Wild. Mm-hmm. That is better used here, I feel. And it's really cool. And I know there's, like, a reason for why it wasn't used as much in Breath of the Wild.
It's really cool, too, that, like, you just have come off the back of playing Breath of the Wild entirely. And I think that's one of the biggest things that, like, I kind of went into with this game was... Not that I knew I was gonna like this game. I've been a Zelda fan since I learned how to breathe, basically, and so like there's no question in my mind that I wasn't gonna hate this game or anything. But I think Nintendo was just like we'll kind of be in this chat for anybody who's worried. We're gonna kind of hold back some spoiler related stuff until the end of the video. I think Nintendo has done a great job holding, keeping some of that stuff so tight to their chest. And I appreciate that a lot.
Oh, yeah.
Because you and I we've talked about how great of an experience it's been to discover some of these new things. Mm-hmm. But I think it really, to me, sells the idea that this game is different based on the fact that, like, you just put 100 and how many hours did you say into Breath of the Wild?
Well, I put 115 here I finished like 2 weeks ago with that run.
Okay, so you just put 115 hours in Breath of the Wild, and you are not even, like, not because you don't have anything else to do. You are just waking up and wanting to play Tears of the Kingdom. And that is so nice.
It's just so good. I don't want to put it down. I wish, like, right now that we didn't have to do this chat so I can just go and play Tears of the Kingdom.
Honestly.
And I know you feel the same.
Yeah, we for context, Felix and I both, like, 15 minutes ago, like, just talked about, like, oh man, like, it's great to do this chat, but like, I wish we both wish we were playing Tears again. And that's such a nice feeling, especially like going into this game, really not knowing kind of what to expect. Maybe I think personally, I was just kind of like bracing for this game to just like not really hit all the notes that I wanted to. And, I think I'm probably like 10 hours or less into the game. Maybe I'm over that. There's been a lot more to be excited about than I think I thought. And that's really swell.
I mean, since I did the review, and a lot of stuff did get spoiled to me before I even got hands on the game, because I couldn't grab footage myself, so I had to look through other footage. So, I mean, I'm actually surprised how little that affected me, because our reviewer was really nice to not like spoil a lot of stuff in that footage. Just wanted to say that Alana did a fantastic job on the review. Such a good review. But I knew like some of the grander things to experience and that stuff. But still, just when I got to those places, when I experienced it myself, it was just so different. And it's not often that a game like just you just want to play it. You want to play it all the time. And I don't get that feeling that often anymore. It's like, yeah, I want to play this in the evening, but I can also do other stuff. Like this I don't want to be doing anything else.
You were kind of talking earlier about like since you just played Breath of the Wild, you've noticed that there are a lot of like really minor improvements to the game as well, which like for me, I don't notice those things right off the bat. But can you think of any that are like not super spoilery, I guess?
Yeah, there's some small quality of life improvements, like for example, when you're climbing and fall into water, if you run out of stamina, normally you would just drown. But I accidentally found out that a small portion of your stamina actually refills. So you can just climb up and figuring out what to do or fast travel out of there. It's just a really nice like thing. And another little detail is like now when Link cooks, he hums small melodies from previous Zelda games. And it's just like you hear Cast theme, you hear the Lost Woods theme. There's actually a lot, and it's really, really cool.
Contextually as well, that's really neat because like Link, it's not like he's humming songs that he like would have heard in like other video games. Like from what you're saying, it sounds like Link just has listened to these songs throughout Breath of the Wild, and now he knows them so well that he's just like, yeah, like that's just his soundtrack now,
I think my favorite quality of life improvement, though, and it was one of my like biggest gripes with Breath of the Wild, is like when you open a chest and your inventory is full, it would just close the chest and you had to drop the item and then go open the chest again.
That's
now,
really cool.
if your like inventory is full, it just lets you select your item and then just drop it and then just pick the thing up from the chest. It's so well executed and it works so nice. And another thing I noticed is that there's a log with dialogue. If you accidentally miss something, you can just press the log button and then you can see the dialogue, which is a really nice feature that wasn't in Breath of the Wild.
Yeah, you see that in a lot of like just dialogue heavy games like Fire Emblem. I've been playing a lot more Engage lately and noticed that it's in there, and visual novels have it.
Yeah.
Breath of the Wild isn't like, it doesn't necessarily have the most, it didn't have the most dialogue of like any video game by any means, but I can see how, in the moment, it's easily to just skip past a bit of dialogue and wish you could go back and see it. So that's cool. I was really surprised, by the way, by how much I've been liking the crafting, or the fuse mechanic.
Yeah.
I was so worried that it was going to be like too much, I hate to say it, but like too much Minecraft in my Zelda, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And it really doesn't feel that way to me right now.
It just fits so well in. Like the Ultra Hand was really wonky to me at the start, and I had a tough time when you have to like turn it around and all that stuff. I couldn't quite figure it out because you have to like turn it to one end to then turn it to the other. It's not like, I thought it would be like completely free, but it's like locked. You like press a button and then it tilts a bit to the left or it tilts a bit to the right.
And it's weird too because the game doesn't really like describe all that for you either, right?
No, you just have to, it's like play and learn. And now it's like, it works so well. When I'm building stuff, it just feels nice. So like when you start playing, you don't have all the abilities at first, and then it feels a lot like Breath of the Wild. But then when you get those first abilities, you get introduced to them, kind of like in Breath of the Wild. You go to these different places and get them, and it was just like my mind just exploded. Like, oh yeah, there's these abilities, and they change so much of the gameplay loop. It's absolutely incredible. Like fusing weapons, fusing stuff to your shield, and like crafting. You have to craft things to get around. It's just so different, and it works incredibly well.
Yeah, and kind of like you were saying, or like we were talking about earlier too, like it doesn't explain necessarily how to do all this stuff. So it kind of is like when you're playing very simplistically, like if you're playing Tetris and you just like figure out a combo, like you get a Tetris, or like you're playing a little puzzle game and you solve a riddle. It almost feels like, to me, like all these building is like a puzzle in itself. And so trying to figure out the solution to tackle this thing that's ahead of you is, it's surprising how Zelda it really is in a way. And now that you're playing Ocarina of Time too, I think you kind of get to see like what these, like where all the puzzle elements come from within the Zelda series.
And I'm like 15 hours into the game so far. I've been playing it non-stop.
That's awesome.
It's a bit early to say, but I like it better than Breath of the Wild. It's just...
Yeah?
I feel like it takes everything that made Breath of the Wild good, and it just adds so much new stuff. It just makes Breath of the Wild almost seem like primitive in a sense, because there's just so much here, so many new areas, characters. It's almost overwhelming because what do I do now? What do I experience? But again, I don't think I would enjoy it as much if I hadn't just played Breath of the Wild before, because I really enjoy seeing, where's the characters in this time? What's going on with the towns? Like, what's happened during these years that's like in between these two games? And I'm just so happy that I did, because you can spot all the tiny differences and everything that's happened. And I'm just glad that I used my time before Tears of the Kingdom to play that. But what about you? You haven't played Breath of the Wild before this, so I imagine that a lot of the stuff feels just new to you.
Yeah, I just booted it up again the other day to play a little bit before Tears, but otherwise it's been years since I first finished it. A lot of stuff does feel really new to me. I haven't ventured out too far from the early parts of the game yet. I never finished all of the shrines in Breath of the Wild. I didn't do all the side quests because a part of me absolutely wanted to 100% the game, but also I loved the game so much that like I didn't really ever want it to be over. I've done the same thing with Tunic actually as well. Like I finished the main campaign and I saw most of the game, but there are all these little extra things little nuggets that I want to be able to go back and discover and finish, but eventually, so the game kind of feels new again, but now that I've been playing Tears of the Kingdom, it kind of feels like I don't have to let Breath of the Wild be this like unfinished game for the rest of my life. Mm-hmm. After I'm done with Tears, like I want to go back to Breath of the Wild and 100% it, not the Korok seeds, not the Korok seeds.
See, that's really interesting, because after playing Tears, I'm like, I don't want to go back to Breath of the Wild. This is like a million times more exciting, but it's also because I did find all the shrines and do a lot of the quests, so I was ready to let go of Breath of the Wild.
And that's absolutely it. You hit it right on the head. I'm not ready to let go of Breath of the Wild yet, but only because I haven't done everything. And yeah, I'm now okay to do that because Tears is such... It's the sequel to The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild that you wanted, that we wanted, like
I was really, really afraid that like I've hyped up the games too much. Like this is the most excited I've been for a game ever. It's a sequel to my favorite game of all time, Breath of the Wild, and it just does so much more than I could have ever hoped for. It's so much grander, so much more lively, so much more fun. Like, let's talk about how this game introduces stuff. Like, the game is a master at having like tutorial-esque stuff, but you don't realize it's a tutorial.
Yeah, you're right.
It just introduces new stuff and you're like, oh, I'm just doing this. And then, oh, it's actually introducing like major new gameplay stuff, but it's not feeling like a tutorial. There's no it's not like a text that pops up, for example, with Xenoblade when you have to fight. It's just like a massive boatload of information. No, you just play. You just, like you say, it doesn't tell you a lot. You have to try and figure it out. And I absolutely love that. It's wonderful.
One thing too that I've noticed that I don't know if the game is just more gracious with it or if I'm misremembering, but I've died a lot.
The game is a lot tougher than Breath of the Wild.
Okay.
Enemies have more health. You have to fuse stuff together, and the weapons before fusing aren't as powerful. So you really have to use all your abilities to your maximum potential. I haven't died as much as I thought, because in the review it also said, the game is much tougher, but I think it's also because a lot of the controls are very similar to Breath of the Wild, and since I've just played that a whole ton, I feel like, because I died a lot in Breath of the Wild in my third playthrough. I was doing a master mode run, and I died all the time because I was just so rusty on the controls. Mm-hmm. But since the controls are very similar, I have 115 hours just in the bag. I feel like that greatly helped me like in fights and stuff.
And even though like I've died a lot, it doesn't really like the respawn points are so, or the reload like points are so frequent, like with the auto saving, that I don't think think it's ever like felt like I've really lost a ton of progress.
That's the best thing with modern games. Like when I was playing Ocarina of Time or like Metroid Prime, they don't really have that autosave. You have to manually save, and if you don't and die, you go back a long way. And I just really like when I die, I just get to like go from there again. And it's something that it does really well. And there's so many autosave slots.
Yeah.
So I wanted to capture some footage for a specific thing, and I think I accidentally took a screenshot, and I didn't want that in like my video file. So I could just go back, and since there were so many, I could just choose the exact moment.
Nice.
Just go back and replay it from there. And I really appreciate that. So yeah. Really lovely.
I think sometimes games can do this thing where, a game like autosaves too much, or like in the original Resident Evils, you would get ink ribbons to save your game. And that, like, you could only save for however many ink ribbons you had. And that kind of made the game feel a bit more scary of an experience because, like, you had to be cautious with that. The game can still feel like you're dying. Like, I remember I fell off of one of the sky islands, and I yelled out loud because I was like, I can't believe I just did that. It was fine in the end. Like but it scared me. Like, even though, I knew I was going to come right back. It was going to be fine.
Yeah. I also just want to say, not having, like, it's really hard not to talk spoilers right now. There's so much I just want to talk about, so many cool stuff, but I'm really holding myself back just because I know a lot of people.
Well, I guess, is there anything else? Because we're a ways into this discussion now. Is there anything else that you kind of like think that you'd like to tell somebody who hasn't played the game yet? Because there's definitely people out there.
The game is so much bigger than like I initially thought, and there's just a boatload of content. It fixes so much from Breath of the Wild. Like, it has a better story, it has more it has cooler side quests, it has so much many new characters and stuff. And it just, if you had some problems with Breath of the Wild, they probably fixed those issues here. That's at least what I feel. They took a lot of feedback from Breath of the Wild, and then they just made this game. So if you like Breath of the Wild, you're gonna love this. And if you didn't like Breath of the Wild, I still think you could like this game then, because it just feels so different. I have completely different emotions. In Breath of the Wild, you're going alone, and the world can feel kind of empty, and the story is like you have to discover what happened. But here, it's just, the world feels so alive, so filled with people, and it's just so nice. I can't describe. I'm just so glad that they lived up to my expectations and even exceeded them. So if you've been on the fence, get the game. It's one of the best games I've ever played.
It's very well said. Very well said. And you reminded me of a thing as well, that so many people are like completely torn up about their feelings on this, but like weapon durability in Breath of the Wild was a big contentious point for people. Some people loved it and some people hated it, and or some people fell in the middle, I guess, which was kind of like me. Since you can like make your own, I don't want to say make your own weapons, but you can fuse.
Well, fuse them together, like you get items from monsters and stuff.
Yeah, you'll get like this item, like, that is like a stick, and you'll be able to do something cool with it that actually makes it like worth having in your inventory. And it
you're like, oh, I can use this stick later if I get a cool item to fuse it together.
Yeah, and it almost kind of like, I think Breath of the Wild did, like, I like the weapon durability system for the fact that Breath of the Wild kind of in a way forces you to play around with weapons that you wouldn't normally use. I'm definitely the kind of person that I like a sword or dual blades or a sword and a shield. I don't want no spear, no axe. I'm not a barbarian. I don't want any of that. So like I would just be like, no thanks. I'm gonna stick with what I like and know, But Tears of the Kingdom, it makes using those other weird items like fun and cool. And I think that was something I wasn't expecting to like click for me in this game. I don't know, how have you felt about like the fusing mechanics and just finding random stuff on the ground?
I really like it, and it's also like it a lot of monsters drop cool parts that you can use to fuse together with like a stick or a big spear or something to make
big stick.
Yeah, a big stick. And I think it works perfectly. I think like you said, a lot of people maybe weren't the biggest fan of weapon durability. I myself wasn't one of those. I thought it was completely fine, but I like this better just because you can make your own weapons, and it's like, oh, if I put this and this together, it makes for a really powerful weapon. I've made that. It just feels so nice that you have a weapon that you've made.
Yeah.
And it's like you want to go defeat like big bosses, because then maybe you get stuff that you can make a new weapon with or something like that. And that just so
You're totally right though, because I guess thinking about that happened to me last night. Where I'll spill it in like our spoiler section, which I know is coming up in just a moment. But I made a weapon last night, and I was like, oh my god, this is the coolest thing ever. And and then you're totally right though. I didn't consider like now I'm going to remember like what parts I used for that, and every time you come across this like stupid blade or like or this gem or something like that, you know, like.
It makes even
you just look at it different, don't you?
It makes even the weakest weapons actually useful, and it also makes you. It's good like encouragement to go actually fight monsters, because I felt, especially in my master mode playthrough, I just didn't go really fight monsters because I didn't get a lot out of it. Maybe you get a chest and then it has like a gemstone or something, but you can get gemstones in other ways. And now it's like, oh, I want to defeat this tough monster because then I can make a really tough weapon.
Yeah,
and it's just. The game does that a lot. That a lot of stuff that maybe wasn't. Oh, you didn't do that a lot in Breath of the Wild. They encourage you to do it much more in this. Like they found maybe you get a certain kind of reward. I won't spoil anything, but they've taken stuff that yes they were in the game, but now you actually want to do those things, and that's a really really nice. Shall we do you want to jump into the spoiler section of this video?
Yeah, I'd say now is the point. If you're listening, dear listener or viewer, if you haven't played Tears of the Kingdom yet, or you're like an hour in or something, now is your chance to turn back around.
There won't be any there won't be any story spoilers. It's just like some cool mechanics and maybe like the first like the starting areas and stuff like that. We just want to talk a bit about those.
This is like all the stuff Nintendo hasn't shown you yet, but we're just freaking out about it, aren't we?
Yeah, we are.
So what do you want to talk about first?
I think we should talk about the elephant in the room.
There's an elephant in this game? I'm just kidding.
I'm not sure. I haven't played through it enough.
The champion, the divine beast is back.
Maruta?
Yeah.
Oh no. So we have the Sky Islands, which is completely different than regular Hyrule.
Very Sonic Frontiers. You look up and you see something and you're like, I want to go there.
And you can see so far in the distance, and it's like small puzzles in the sky. But then, not only do you have giant Hyrule, you have a whole freaking world beneath it called the Depths. Sion.
I love the way the game is just like, this like pit opened up in the ground and there's like all this gloom, like this dark stuff down there that's like hurting people. Like we should go investigate it. And you go do that. And like this is the reason this is the point of no return. And I know like you knew some of this stuff before you went into it, Felix. But like when I went down there for the first time into this like this dark realm pit thing, underground cave system, I was like, what is this? This is my mind was completely blown away, because that was, one of my biggest worries with Breath of the Wild, and I think a lot of people, was that this game was going to just feel like a lot of the same. But then you have this completely huge underground.
It's not only huge, it's literally like entirety of Hyrule size, it's just a whole new map, essentially. Enemies are tougher, you have the gloom that takes away, like also just enemies that are like infected with this gloom. When they attack you, you lose hearts that you can't regenerate.
Yeah.
At least for some time, unless you find, like you can recover them in some ways. But it's not just, you can't just make a meal, a regular meal, and then just eat that. And the atmosphere, the music, completely different, and it's completely dark. No light, you have to have these special seeds. You have to throw them or attach them to an arrow so you can actually look at stuff. And it's just so different from anything in Breath of the Wild.
I didn't consider it until right now, but like it's wild how close to like just spelunking or like exploring caves this probably really is, because you're right, like it's so dark, it's incredibly dangerous, but there's treasure to be found, and there's constantly like something over in the distance that you're like, oh, maybe I should go a little deeper, even though like you might die.
Yeah.
It's incredibly immersive in a way that it really surprised me. I can't believe it.
And it's just also like when you're done, like, oh, I don't want to go around Hyrule anymore, you can just jump down one of these big holes and there's a whole new underground world. And I think I can best describe it to actually it's not, I don't know if it's a good comparison. Stardew Valley. you have farming, and it's like, oh, this is cool. And then you have the whole villager, like you can talk with villagers. But then you also have mining, which is it could be its own game. And it just gives you that variety for like, oh, I don't want to do this anymore. You can do a completely different thing. And I feel like this is exactly that. Like you have like the Hyrule, then you also have the Sky Islands that feel completely different. And then you have the underground for when you get tired of that.
Yeah.
And it just, all three areas feel completely different.
I'm at this place now where, you and I have talked, Felix has explored the Sky Islands or a bit more than I have. I wanted to say quite a bit, but it's like, whoa, we've only played for like 10 to 15 hours, so not that much.
It's mostly Hyrule, actually. I was most excited to see like what has changed and stuff, but I heard you were down in the depths a lot. You really like that.
Yeah, it's so fun because like pose are back in this game now as well, which we don't have to get into how they work or anything, but they're there and they're just like floating around in the underground, right? And I just love that, like, you look in a direction and because everything is dark, you'll see like these little light blue things floating in the distance, or you might see the red glow of some enemies. Or Felix, I'm not going to entirely spoil this for you if you haven't found it yet, because have you seen any like floating weapons yet?
Yes, I have. I found one.
I was so scared the first time I saw one of those because I was like, is it gonna murder me? Like, I don't...
Is it like a Dark Souls boss?
Yeah, exactly. Like, even once you take it, like, is it gonna like kick you off the mountain, like the little pillar that you're on, and like make you fight it? Like,
yeah, and the reward is actually quite cool. So I think this game introduces all regular weapons are like damage decayed, and they aren't like, so you have a royal claymore, or you have like
there's like a broadsword, right? And even like
and all those weapons that you used in Breath of the Wild are now really weak. They don't work really well. But this shadow figure gives you like a completely undamaged version of these weapons, which is really cool because you can't find them in Hyrule anymore.
Yeah, and they're just like, maybe they're like specifically placed. Maybe they spawn into certain areas. I don't know how it works. Like if they're like a one and done scenario, but you're right. Like you'll just see them like in this completely dark realm, and you'll want to venture out that way, but you have to be careful about, like the gloom being on the ground and not touching that. And also maybe like some enemies are going to sneak up on you, and like, oh, you don't want to use all of your bloom seeds either, because you got to make sure you have enough to get back. Or I guess you can fast travel too, that we know. But it's just it's crazy how like the underground really is just this like unknown world, and I'm kind of finding like I want to keep exploring that over like the main Hyrule right now. And maybe it's because it's just so fun. There's like not really a lot of story happening in the underground so far from what I've found, but it kind of feels like the mines is such a great comparison, Felix, because I remember like playing Harvest Moon back in the day, which also had mines, and it was just so fun to explore those and see like how far you could get, kind of. And this game kind of does that as well. Like see how far away from your last like safe point you can really get.
Yeah.
I'm blown away by it, really, man. I can't believe it.
And it's not the thing I really like is like each area has like its own currency and its own like reason for wanting to go there. Like they encourage you to go underground so you can get this item that you can use to get like charges for like the things you can build, because you can use your Ultra Hand to build stuff with Sonai stuff.
Yeah.
And for those you need like Sonai charges, and you can get those by going into the underground and mining certain stuff. But then not only do we have these three massive things, we also have caves now in just regular Hyrule. And these are also completely different from like anything else in the game, and they have their own like, you have unique enemies, you have unique like small fishes or mushrooms or whatever inside of there.
And they have like names too once you walk into them, right? For the most part.
I really love like the discovery. It says like discovery, and then you find it. I really love caves, and there's so much cool stuff to find. And then when you're done with it, you can just ascend through the ceiling, so you don't have to go all the way back, which is...
Oh my gosh, I didn't even consider that. Yeah.
I do that all the time. They've designed it in a way so normally you can just, at the end of the cave, you can just ascend it back up. I really like the first area, the Sky Island in the sky. It works kind of like the Great Plateau.
Yeah.
You get, it's like a giant tutorial of all this stuff, and it is a bit slow. I was like a bit like, oh, I just want to go to Hyrule. Let me just skydive down. But it was also just, it was so different from anything else. Such a different atmosphere, so many new items, and there's like sky mushrooms, and there's these constructs, you don't really know what they are, and some of them are aggressive, some of them teach you some of the stuff, and I love how the ones that teach you are just like, oh, you don't know this? Well, let me explain it to you.
Yeah.
They're so nice.
Don't you love how like just like happy they are to see you as well?
Yeah.
They're just like, oh, I haven't seen someone in a while. Like, oh, it's so nice. Like, it's so nice to chat. Like, oh, let me know if you need anything else. I'll be right here if you want to come hang out by the fire or something like that. It's like, what?
I think one of the things I'm most when I light up is like when I see a character from Breath of the Wild that I just remember, like there's this character Carson, which is like one of the Bolson constructive guys in Hateno Village. He's not Hudson, he's like the other guy who helps you build the house and stuff. And you find him in an introduction area, and it's just like, hey, nice to see you here. And the other characters are also like, hey, Link, because almost all the characters know you. And it's like, oh, Link, we know who you are, and all that stuff. And that was just so nice. It felt like your adventure of Breath of the Wild almost felt like you got rewarded for like playing it. Or at least that's how I felt.
Yeah,
like
I see
in the
what you
first
mean.
game, no one knows you, and in this one, it's like everyone knows you, and it's just really nice. Also, like seeing like Pura. I don't know if that's how you pronounce.
Yeah, Pura. I don't know.
Yeah, Pura. But she's grown up. I was just like, whoa, that's so cool. Because she was a kid in the game. She's an old woman, but she accidentally reversed her into a kid. And it's just so cool to see her actually as a proper adult almost, doing all this research and being the lead. Like,
Yeah.
It's really, really cool. And
her personality is completely intact.
yeah, exactly. Hyrule just looks so different because there's a new town, or there's like all these different caves, and all the sky islands are now like have messed up some of Hyrule, and there's just new activities. The monsters are new places, and the Korok seeds are not. It's also new places. So it's like everything you learned and knew where was in Breath of the Wild are just not where they are in this game. And that's insanely cool, returning to all these places, and things have just changed.
Yeah. There's a part of me that, not yet, but at some point I want to go back and like watch all of the trailers again. Just, kind of like, we don't have to do it on video, but I just want to watch them again, like in numerical order, just to kind of like understand like exactly what all the details were. Like there's one, so in Tears of the Kingdom, I know we're in spoiler territory now, so it doesn't matter, I guess, but you discover bomb flowers are in the game. And I screamed when I picked one up and was like, it's a bomb flower. I love it. I'm so glad.
Yeah.
But then shortly after, you see like something that kind of looks like a like you see in Ocarina of Time, and I was like, no way, no. And they're like way worse than they were potentially in that game, because they like spit out at you and everything. And I think we see one of those in one of the early Tears of the Kingdom trailers.
Yeah, we do.
Right? Like, was that the bit with the shield that has like the dragon head? Okay,
exactly. That's a like.
That's so crazy that like back then, I don't remember. I mean, there have to have been somebody out there that was like, oh, that's a like, absolutely. But none of us were really considering that. And I think it's really cool how they've changed so many like things that are familiar in past Zelda games as well, and like brought them back and made them different. But not in like a bad way. They haven't dumbed them down. They've made them more scary in some ways. So like I heard Redeads are in this game, so I can't wait for us to find those. Boy.
Oh no. I'm insanely grateful that I at least tried Ocarina of Time before this. I'm doing a playthrough right now, but I'm just like seeing the like. I was like, oh, I remember this from Ocarina of Time. It's so cool to see it. And you get like, I use the bomb flowers on arrows because then it gets out that thing that you can hit, and it's just so cool.
It's so nice to see that you're like genuinely enjoying Ocarina of Time, by the way. We're not going to go dive into Ocarina of Time now, but I just like that game, to me and to so many people, was like the reason why we like love Zelda so much. And so it's cool to like genuinely know that like you're having a good time with it, and like that it has brought value to you. Because I think there's gonna be a point in life where I'm like, I don't know if people, even now, I don't think people. I worry if people are going to want to go back and play Ocarina of Time, and it's real nice. I'm so glad.
Well, thank you. And it's just so cool to see how far we've come, like just in 20, 30 years. Like so, like you take Ocarina of Time, it's an amazing video game, but just like you have in Tears of the Kingdom, you have 3 massive worlds that you can just go and explore. Oh, I made a really, really cool discovery, and I don't know if this is a spoiler. It was in a cave, and there was like some creatures, and they were called sticky lizards. Have you found those?
I did. Yeah, I want to hear, what was your experience with them like, though?
Okay, so I found out that if you cook them, right, if you make them into an elixir, you can climb, and I repeat, when it rains, on slippy surfaces.
Oh, whoa, that's
I completely like, whoa, that's so cool. That was like, I just hated that you couldn't climb in the rain and stuff, and now you can make elixirs to do so. It's just, oh, thank God. And that's what I mean. It's like everything that was a complaint in Breath of the Wild, they've listened, and there's now a fix for it.
Yeah,
that's so nice.
That's really
so
cool,
nice.
because you're totally right. Like it did. You know, I could see how, like, you know, the rain was, I think it was a neat element that you could be scared of in Breath of the Wild, but it did hinder your progress at times because there was no solution. You know, you could use Rivali's Gale, or, you know, I find a cave to take shelter and start a fire and you know, rest for the day or something. I mean, I suppose there were like little solutions, but you're right. Like that is sweet. I did not know that was a thing. Yeah. I did shoot the first one that I saw. I shot it, and I was like, "Oh, like was I supposed to do that?" And then I picked it up and was like, "Okay, I guess so."
A new thing is all the sonar like elements you can use to build, and you can get some like in these capsules, kind of like gacha machines, and you can just get like.
I saw that, was like, that's not a gacha machine, is it? And he was like, "Oh, all right."
And it's just really nice that you have these things to build stuff with your Ultra Hand at all times.
Yeah.
I know it doesn't really make sense that he has all this stuff on him, but it's fun. And that's the most important thing. That it's not logical that you can just jump in the water from the Sky Islands and nothing happens, but it's fun.
Yeah, it's not logical that Link just does that at the beginning of the game without like any consideration of like what's down below. He just like walks out of the cave and is like, "Hey, I could probably, I'll survive this. I'm Link," and he just does it because he has the courage, and it's ridiculous. But you're right.
And then, like, if you jump from a high enough place, it has like this water effect where it's like, and like,
oh yeah,
it falls down a few, and it's just so.
That was the sound you made when you entered the discussion, right?
Oh yeah, yeah, exactly.
That's right. Okay, cool.
Nice callback.
Thanks.
But
I just so we have some reader questions. So on our community tab on YouTube, before we started recording this video, we asked if anybody had any questions about Zelda Tears of the Kingdom for us. And the top comment was by somebody named AZ23MJ, and the question is, how do you stop playing this game?
You can't.
It's so engaging.
You literally can't. I've never been more addicted to the game than this. It's absolutely incredible.
The same person also asked, "Can you tell my family that I'm okay? They haven't seen me in 24 hours due to Tears of the Kingdom." So in those scenarios, yes, you can stop playing the game. You do have to stop and eat food, go to the bathroom, see your family, at least contact them and let them know you're okay. I should probably tell my grandma and my mom I'm doing the same, but you know, it's just, reach out. That's my advice, I think, there. But yeah, Felix, you're right. Like, how do we stop?
It is tough. It is really like, I don't want to stop.
Yeah, it's one of those things, just like Animal Crossing too, man. I swear, like it, you know, I was talking about it in the caves earlier. Like you see a thing in the distance, or like you make a mark on your map, or you go and sell some stuff, or you go to the stables and you find out that like pony points are a thing now, and your time is just completely sucked away from you, but you're so...
Did you find the pony points?
I did. So I think I was starting to tell you earlier before the chat, but I went to a cave, and then I saw a horse, and I got the horse, and I was like, okay, like I love this horse is great now. I want to go find the stable. So I ran around for like 10 minutes.
There was a horse in the cave?
Oh, outside of the cave. Sorry. I did the cave, and then I was like
that would be cool.
Maybe there will be, though. I mean, that's this game, right? It's like you just never know.
I don't think there's room for it, but yeah. I mean, we've only played for like 10, 15
Yo,
hours.
but that's the thing though, Felix, is right. Like I haven't gotten it yet, but you get like not a leash, but like you can get a leash essentially to like tie your horse to something with the pony points.
Yes.
So like maybe we will find a horse in a cave tied to like a pole or something like that, and we'll have to save it. I don't know, but
when I said earlier that there was like all these new things to encourage you to do stuff that you didn't really do a lot, I was talking about the pony points, because in the past you can sleep in the stables, but you can also just sleep at any, like you can rest at a campfire just outside, so why spend the rupees there? But now you want to sleep in the stables because then you get pony points and you can use those to get cool stuff. So there's a person who asks on the community tab, are there any puzzles that absolutely require motion controls? And I actually found the one that is shown in trailers that I thought was motion controls. And this was a question by King Eridonia. And thank you for the question first. And I tried it, and it was just the Ultra Hand ability, like when you... Because I thought the Ultra Hand would be motion controls or something like that. But it's like, you just tilt it around with like the arrow buttons. And that's exactly what that like big thing in the sky was. It's just that. The motion controls like in Shrines where you had to get a ball through this thing or stuff, I hated. It was awful. It didn't really work that well. And I haven't encountered that now. Again, I'm not that far into the game. But at least the stuff that I thought would be motion controls isn't.
Tube Miner 13 asks, as somebody who has not played Breath of the Wild yet, would you recommend I play that first? Is it worth it? I feel like you would be best equipped to answer that question, Felix.
So, I mean, if you're seeing everyone just playing Tears of the Kingdom and you want to get in on that, yes, you can absolutely play this, because like the game introduces a lot of the stuff that was already introduced in Breath of the Wild in this game, like how to use the camera, or like how you get a paraglider and how you use that. But it introduces it in new ways. But if you want the best experience possible, I would recommend playing Breath of the Wild first, because if you play Tears of the Kingdom, I feel like you're going to have a bit of a hard time going back to Breath of the Wild, just because it strips away a lot of the stuff from Tears of the Kingdom.
Sure. And I suppose Tears doesn't really like, it doesn't give you like a rundown of like what happened in Breath of the Wild either.
No, it doesn't, but it has like character profiles. By the way, character profiles are so cool that you can just see like the characters, and I think they're added
beautiful,
that,
aren't they?
For like people who hadn't played Tears of like Breath of the Wild, because then you can see what these characters are. But again, I personally really liked going into this game that I had already played Breath of the Wild, and a lot of people said that, oh, I don't want to play Breath of the Wild just before, because then Tears of the Kingdom will not feel as new. But I can just say, it feels new. It feels so different, so fresh, and so I would personally play Breath of the Wild because it's an amazing game. It was my favorite game of all time, but I think this takes the cake just because it's that game, but more things, and every small complaint I had with it, they fixed, I feel. Performance isn't always the best in this game, especially, I had a lot of performance issues with the intro Sky Island. I don't know if it was the same for you, Sion, but it struggled.
There were a few like little details where I was like, but honestly, the one time where it really lagged down for me, or like got bogged down like frame rate wise, was when I was roaming around on a horse trying to find the stable. I think I ran up next to some other horses or some enemies or something, and it just chugged. I think I have like gameplay of that too, so I'll try to throw it up here if I can find it. But
I don't know if it's like my version, but it chugs a lot. Like it chugged a lot in the intro. Just me like running around it would drop frames and stuff.
And you were playing in docked mode too, right?
Yes, I was.
Okay, interesting.
But what I wanted to say is that there's only performance issues like in that intro area, or especially when you use the Ultra Hand, if there's multiple objects, it would just like cut the frame rate in half. And it's a bit like, it's what it is. But the further I've gotten into the game, I don't notice it at all, just because the game is so fun. And also, it just happens less frequent when you get down to Hyrule, and I've not experienced it at all in the depths. It was only in the intro like area, which
same, actually.
And like when using the Ultra Hand, and also just using the Ultra Hand to figure out like, oh, how do I get here? Oh, I'm just gonna make a giant bridge of like trees. It's so fun.
It's not that we should like forgive bad frame rate or anything like that, but it's kind of like, okay, like let's say your uncle buys you a Nintendo Switch for builds you a Nintendo Switch from scratch. And for some reason that Switch, like, it can't You can't put a cool case on it because it doesn't fit in a case, but you can play Tears of the Kingdom on it. You can play it with your friends. The Joy-Cons come off. Everything it's the coolest Switch ever, but you can't put a cool case on it. It's like, to me, that's how Tears of the Kingdom and the frame rate feels. It's like, the game is so awesome that it's like, it's fine. It's fine that you chug sometimes. It's okay. Sometimes I have trouble waking up in the morning. You know, we all have that.
I felt that was the perfect way to put it. And a lot of people will say, well, why does this get a pass? Well, because it's an absolutely fantastic game. And thus, I'm okay with it chugging sometimes. And it's much less frequent now that a bit more into the game. It almost doesn't happen, which is really nice. And I imagine it's the thing that will, like, you'll get some patches down the road. But the game, I'm just impressed that this can run on the Switch. It's
funny you bring that up because another user named Xeon Dude on this community post asks, Felix, since you just played Breath of the Wild, I was curious, what do you think graphically of these two games? How do they compare?
Well, firstly, I want to say thank you to Xeon Dude for asking that question. And I will just say the game looks much better than Breath of the Wild. Like, the render distance is much further and everything just looks so clear. And also when it rains and there's thunder, those are just much better. I don't know, the thunder feels scary and it's like, boom, it's really thunderous. And you can tell that this was built for the Switch and that Breath of the Wild was built for the Wii U. Like, mountains and stuff look better and you can just look so far. And it's like when you're standing on the Sky Islands and look down and you can just see this entire Hyrule.
Yeah.
Graphically, it's gorgeous. Like, when you're standing on the Sky Islands, it has this completely different look to it. It's much more yellowish. And the sunsets, oh my god, is it so pretty. There's just so much variety, like visual-wise and graphical. I've always loved the art style and art direction of Breath of the Wild, and it just takes it even further. A thing I really like is that villages and like NPCs in Breath of the Wild looked a bit simple, especially like just like people living in the towns. But it seems in this game, all the villages, there's some new really cool designs and they're much more detailed. I really love that. Like, other pieces of clothing, they have like some unique hair or unique like structure. Like, have you noticed that too with like the NPCs?
They all feel like they have so much character and personality, and I do really like that. Jay Robertson also just asked, or they said, got destroyed my first time going underground. Should I level up before going back down there? And I think the simple answer is, I think you're fine. I think just be careful and just take your time. And if you see a big group of enemies that you don't think you have time or the energy to go fight, but you want to keep exploring, just ignore them.
And that's also the cool thing is that, I mean, Sion says you shouldn't overlevel, but if you want to level a bit up and go back, because that's what I did. I felt I was completely underpowered, so I just went up again, got a few more hearts, and then I went back and it was a bit easier.
Oh, nice.
This game, you can play it in whatever way you want. If you want to go down to the depths first and just explore that like Sion, go for it. If you want to go around Hyrule and see what's new, go for it. If you want to go to the Sky Islands and just like go around there, you can go for it. You can do whatever you want. This game gives you a million possibilities, and you can get on this adventure. I feel like every single playthrough for each one of us will be different, and we'll have different stories to tell, and we'll like, oh, did you do that first? I went here first. And there's just that sense of, it is really the most open world game I've ever played.
Tying into this almost, Family YouTube says, how do I get back into Tears of the Kingdom? Which honestly confused me when they first said that, because I was like, what do you mean? The game just came out. But what they mean is, I got it day one and I've been too lazy to play it. So many good games I am playing that I'm just hooked on right now, and it's hard trying to get to Zelda at the moment. Gamer's curse. I think we both have a lot to say, we could talk about that forever, but just, play it when it feels right to you. The game will be there. I would be terrified of things getting spoiled for me, but kind of like you said, play any game your way.
But I can also understand like why a lot of people want to get into it, just because there's so much hype and so many people are playing it. But if you don't want to get into the game, you don't have to. The game will be there, and it's awesome. So I think you'll like it a lot whenever you get into it. Like, my fiance is also like really, she has a lot of things going on, so she hasn't picked it up yet. But she says she's going to in the future, just that right now the game looks so massive, so almost overwhelming, that she just in where she is in life right now, she doesn't want to play it right now, and that's completely fair. I totally get that. But on the other hand, it's really cool to see just how many people are excited.
Yeah.
So to answer the question of this video, yes, Zelda is that good. All the hype, all the good reviews, it is just an absolutely mesmerizing experience that if you haven't gotten the game, what are you doing? Just go and get it. It's so good.
Well, Felix, as we know, we could be chatting about Tears of the Kingdom forever, but we have lots of Tears of the Kingdom to go play. So, so we're going to get back to that. Let us know in the comments below what your Tears of the Kingdom experience has been like so far. Maybe you haven't picked up the game. Also, if there are any like certain videos that you'd like us to make around Tears of the Kingdom, we'll be reading a lot of the comments for all the Zelda stuff. As I mean, we read most of the comments anyways. Who am I kidding? But just let us know if there's something you think we should cover or anything that's really stumped you. Because we're gonna be paying a lot of attention to Zelda for the next forever, aren't we, Felix?
We're gonna make a lot of videos on this, and I'm really excited. Like right now, I'm just playing the game to know, oh, how can we turn this into a video and stuff. And this was so nice to just get to talk about that. And like you said, we could be talking forever. And I feel like we've played like for 10-15 hours, and I just feel like I've only scraped the surface. There's so much I just have unanswered, like how do I do this? Oh, what's like this? I've explored so little of the map, and
for real, right?
Yeah,
it's like there's not enough time in the day to see everything this game has to offer right now.
Definitely,
it's a good time to be a Zelda fan. So thankful. My goodness.
Yeah, the wait was worth it.
Yeah, it was. It was. Thank you all so much for watching. I'm Zian from Nintendo Life. Stay safe out there. And Felix, what should the people do right after this video?
Play Tears of the Kingdom! I know, at least I'm gonna. Japan!